Welcome. It is Tuesday, and that means that it is time for the Sports Court. I'm Eddie Cox. Joining me in the studio is Gregory Beatty, Ohio State's finest, in the
I don't
building.
know
So
about that.
we're going to talk a little bit of college football and some of the things that unfolded on Saturday, along with some of the drama coming out of Ohio State. Also, man, traveling around the city, bouncing around, I'm starting to sense a lot of you Astros fans out there are starting to panic. I'm going to tell you why. You can ease up and rest a little bit easy. I know it's getting down to where the Astros seem to be cutting it a little bit too close for comfort. We thought they had this pretty much in the bag. Now it looks like it's going to come down to these last two series, one with the
Gotta stay
Rays,
focused,
one
Stros.
with the A's. We're going to talk about that later on. And then, of course, week 3 in the NFL unfolded, and boy, do we have some matchups. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes went toe to toe. We got to see our first matchup between Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott in an NFC East that was looking uber competitive up until last night. But we start off, Greg. We start off in Columbus.
Uh-oh.
Tell me what happened. You got a little bit of an inside scoop on this player walking off the field, quitting at halftime. You don't hear stories like this every day.
Actually, I think it was the second quarter.
Tell me
I don't have the inside
what
scoop on it
happened.
more so than what anyone else knows about it. I hadn't checked into it to that degree because obviously they try to downplay it as much as possible. But Kayvon Pope, Kayvon Pope, he actually walked off the field, and that's really no laughing matter. I mean, you can't do that. You can't do. But it really makes me wonder what's really going on in Columbus right now because obviously too, Dallas Gant, he just entered the transfer portal as well. So that's two guys now. But supposedly Kayvon Pope, a linebacker. I want to say he's a senior linebacker, maybe a junior, but he actually thought he was going into a football game and was waved off, got into it with some of the coaches, and literally walked off the field, had to be escorted off the field, I think late in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken, and then tweeted out some things, threw up the middle finger to Ohio State, which was later.
He pulled an Eli Manning. Did you watch? I know. Did you watch the whole game? All right. Did you ever click over? We're going to talk about this a little bit too later on. ESPN2,
Absolutely.
they have Monday Night Football with the Mannings.
With Eli, yeah.
And I don't know if you caught it, but Eli Manning gave the middle finger 2 times to the camera. So
I didn't see that. I happened to turn by a couple of times, but I did not see that.
Oh, there's screenshots from it all through my text. We'll talk about that. But when I just heard you talk about the tweets and the middle finger, that's the first thing that came to mind.
Right.
We're definitely going to mention that and the shenanigans that him and his brother have been putting together.
I love those guys.
On Monday Night Football with the secondary broadcast available on ESPN2.
That they're really hyping up and for good reason as well. But so it wasn't a good look for Ohio State. This guy literally quit during the game because he had it out with the coaches and he thought he was going to the game. But supposedly Ohio State is playing a lot of these young guys, and like Ryan Day said, he was like, hey, who's ever playing the best, they're the ones that's going to play. So a lot of these seniors and juniors are getting beat out by some of these talented freshmen, and of course, the talent has materialized on the defensive side of the ball in the last few games. And those guys are just getting frustrated. So Ohio State tried to come out and say he was dismissed from the team. Well, maybe they're trying to save face right there because it looked like to me, Eddie, like he dismissed himself from the team in the second quarter of that game. So, of course, Ohio State is going to come out and try to save face and say this and say that. And, but it's very – That wasn't a good look all the way around for Ohio State, or it wasn't a good look on his part. Now, it's going to be interesting to see. Now, he was definitely acting on emotions in the moment. It's going to be interesting to see which team takes a chance on him. Because if you'll do that to your team right there, who's to say you won't do it when you get over here to this team? But if someone believes in his talent, they're going to look past that. And they're going to realize that, or they're going to feel like that, hey, that won't happen here. But that's just not a good look. And you already see Ohio State.
No, you could say career could be done. I mean,
it could be. It could be.
And I don't know exactly how talented the kid was. If you're talking about a guy who's getting beat out by freshmen coming in, you've got some freshmen that come in, with the body and that are ready to play, at an elite level. Maybe they're not ready for the NFL yet, but they're definitely ready to compete, in FCS or FBS. And you can't get on the field as a senior, that doesn't mean you don't have a chance
He's
in
getting
the
on the
NFL,
field
but it
not as
doesn't
much
tell
as he.
me that his career is going to go any further than it just went.
Right,
It's
right,
not like
obviously.
he's Vontae Davis, and if he walks off the field in halftime, when he's in his
It's a big
sixth,
deal.
he's at his sixth team
Right.
in his 12th year or whatever it was, 10th year,
Yeah.
and you've already got some All-Pro and Pro Bowl seasons out of him. That's a different story. But
Right.
here's a guy you'd be taking a long shot on. Period.
Yeah. I mean, now the fact that he played at Ohio State, obviously he has some kind of talent because we all know how Ohio State recruits. But I'm with you, like, if he was that good, he would actually be playing more snaps. Not that he wasn't playing, but wasn't playing the amount of snaps that he thought he should. And supposedly they're playing some younger guys right there. So obviously he wasn't somebody that they totally counted on to be this star for the defense. We already see what the defense has been doing. Now, speaking of that, then you have, and speaking of the defense, now we beat up on Akron last week, 59-7, but that was kind of expected. Now, I'll tell you what, I would have came in here very unoptimistic this week if my Buckeyes would have played against Akron. No disrespect to Akron. I mean, but I would have been very unoptimistic, Eddie, if they would have had trouble with Akron. And most of their starters, Travion Henderson had 93 yards on 8 carries in the first half. They set him down. So they did what they were supposed to do. They're playing a lot more zone. Speaking of Travion Henderson, my thing is, he has 93 yards in the first half. Get him that extra carry, get him that 100. I know you don't want to take a chance on the injury or this and that, but sometimes you got to play on these guys' psyche. I thought last night they should have made sure Zeke got that 100 yards to play on his psyche some to really, but again, you can look at it like, you have to swallow your ego, and it's a team game, and yada, yada, yada. But sometimes just play on the psyche, get him the 100 yards, let him feel good about that. Now, real quick, Eddie.
He needs to feel good about that performance regardless.
Huh?
He needs to feel good about the performance he put forward.
He does.
Regardless.
I'm sure he does. Now, he didn't say nothing about it. That's me. That's me for my own selfish reasons. Let him get his 100 yards. I'm sure he was fine with it. But I tell you what, man. Speaking of Ohio State real quick before we move on, of course, like Eddie said, going to talk a lot of NFL. The NBA season is getting ready to start. Don't know how much we'll be able to get into it today, but of course, Ben Simmons he's not reporting to camp in Philly. We'll see how that plays out. You have guys that don't want to take the vaccination shots, and Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie Irving, and in San Francisco and in New York, they have rules to where you cannot play in your home games or be inside a building if you're unvaccinated. So we'll see how that plays out. But speaking of Ohio State real quick and a little bit more on college football, Eddie, before we move on. And then to top all that off, what's going on now, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. I still don't see how Vegas has us as the fourth best odds to win the national championship. I'm not falling for it, but the Big Ten is stout, and Jamison Williams, transfer from Ohio State, who I thought they should have found more run for last year in a 3-receiver set with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. The guy is special. He is special. You look at what he's doing at Alabama right now, wearing that number 1. He went to Alabama, and he is the man. And matter of fact, he may be in the Heisman race right now. You see what he did this past weekend? 100-yard kickoff return, 83-yard kickoff return, if I'm not mistaken, 81-yard touchdown reception. The first game he had a 94-yard touchdown. That is what you call a big play receiver. 6'2", he's probably going to be a first rounder now, can do it all. And you know what I hate about it, though, Eddie? Every time he's running for a touchdown, they have to remind me that he's a transfer from Ohio State. He's at the 50. He's at the 40, the 30, the transfer from Ohio. I'm like, come on, man, damn, really? Every time the guy runs a touchdown, you have to mention he transferred from Ohio State. But that goes to show you can't let that talent get away and go to Alabama if you're trying to win the national championship. I don't see what you didn't see in this guy to have him on the field more.
Let the kids play. Don't let them quit at halftime. Let them get on the field.
But you know who else is
Everybody
good
gets
to
at
move
least
on?
one series, Greg.
Right. Okay, you have Bama 4-0, who I was just speaking of, the aforementioned Bama.
But it's no surprise that somebody would transfer and go to Bama and take advantage of the opportunity. All the new rules and everything with COVID.
He went to Bama.
It makes it so much easier just
I'm going to win that championship.
uproot and go somewhere. When you used to not be able to do that, you used to have to sit out an entire season, so nobody really wanted to transfer.
That's why these guys
And now these guys are transferring left and right. You think about a guy going to Alabama. Why wouldn't you? When you see Nick Saban.
And they should be able to. You have coaches who can leave and go to other schools and coach the next year. But go ahead.
You see Saban get on TV Monday Night Football and start talking about what makes going to Alabama so great and why quarterbacks should go there. And you can tell he's actively recruiting, right there on national television. And you wonder why they're so freaking good. It's because of him and because of how his ability how good he is at getting players in-house and never giving up on a
You
player.
saw that talent,
Just because he's
but
on
they
a different campus doesn't mean he can't end up wearing the crimson colors of the Crimson Tide. So, hey, man,
Right.
that's why until he walks away,
Oh, he's
man,
the best ever.
I don't know. It's going to be really tough for some of these other schools to jump up and get him, even though, hey, things are unfolding very surprisingly in the SEC. I know you're talking about Ohio State here, and you brought up Alabama. How about
Who has
Arkansas?
Ole Miss this week? Oh,
How
man.
about
First of all, let me
Arkansas?
say something about Alabama real quick and Ole Miss, Eddie, but I appreciate you bringing up Arkansas because that's definitely a team that I want to speak on too. But you have Bama at number one. Obviously, they're playing like Bama. Had that scare against Florida, but, they're entrenched at number one right now. They have Ole Miss this week and Lane Kiffin, your boy Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss with Matt Corral, who's in the running for the Heisman if you had some votes early on. That's how well he's playing right now. So I like where Lane Kiffin has that school going. Ole Miss, Manning. You were talking about the Mannings a second ago. But they have Ole Miss this weekend, and obviously I told you what they did this past week, but dominated Southern Miss. But so we'll see what happens in that game. You have Georgia entrenched at number two. They haven't had a scare since that first game. They're dominating on defense. They are dominating. So they have Arkansas. So how do you see that game playing out? Speaking of Arkansas, Traylon Burks. You see that number right there? That's the number one. And that means first round. And that's where he's going. At 6'4", 220 or whatever he is, and he's a big play receiver. He can take it to the house. He can flat out go. He can go. But Arkansas is looking damn good right now, Eddie.
Yeah, and you know what? And it makes me want to keep an eye on KJ Jefferson. I know he was dealing with a little bit of an injury issue throughout that game as you saw the backup come in.
You're right.
But, man, whenever he's rolling, and the way he plays and as big as he is, I'm starting to look at them, and they're starting to remind me. And you hear people say it sometimes, too. They'll talk because he wears the number one. I think I heard it in the broadcast, Cam Newton's name get brought up. But you almost go back to the Auburn days, You see him back there. He's big. He's strong. He's not afraid to run it. He's got an arm driving the ball to the sidelines, making big, strong throws. Is he the most polished quarterback? No. But at this level, we all know you don't have to be, especially to compete at this level. And then you look around, and they've got a bunch of dogs on defense and dogs on the offensive line. Man, I'm waiting for, if this gets down to the end of the season and we're talking about Arkansas, I have to look at the schedule when they play their next heavy hitter. But, man.
They play Georgia this week.
Oh, they can play Georgia this week. Okay. This is going to tell us. This is going to tell us who the other big dog is in the SEC aside from Alabama, because Florida put up a tough task, but they still got beat. They were unable to put the ball in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. So, man, how this game plays out could tell us who we're going to see either in the SEC championship, maybe even if Arkansas is good enough to make a national championship run. The way they played so far, you look at the way they dismantled Texas when they did, and then Texas A&M, a team that, let's face it, damn near everybody out there was high on. This Texas A&M team, this was supposed to be the year that they don't do this. The year they don't do this. They always do this. Johnny freaking Manziel is the only one who can beat Alabama. They do this every year. It's high hopes, and then they disappoint.
They do.
But could it be because this is just
that's only one loss.
This is just an Arkansas Razorback team that nobody saw coming, maybe except for your boy Clint Sterner over at 6'10", because he's a Razorback. Maybe he's the only one who saw this coming. Him and your boy Jerry Jones.
I didn't see it coming.
Let me tell you something, dude. I've been pleasantly surprised, and it's time.
Really turned that culture around.
It is time for somebody else to step up in the SEC and try to take this thing from Alabama. We for year after year, we thought it was going to be Georgia, and then maybe A&M could put up a fight here and there. But who's it going to be? All these other teams always fall short. Could Arkansas be that team? I don't know. If KJ Jefferson is healthy, you know what happens. The ones that beat Alabama is when you have that one guy that can elevate his game, and he just plays magical, and he takes a team that, they're good. They may not be.
That's what Matt Corral does this week.
Right. They may not be as good as Alabama, but, hey, you elevate them big time for a big win. It can happen. I've seen it. We've seen it happen in college football time and time again. So, Arkansas on their way, but keep an eye on Jefferson and the injury. Hopefully he's okay, because that offense looked completely different whenever Hornsby came in the game.
And Traylon Burks got dinged up, too, in that game. So I don't know how healthy he's going to be this upcoming week as well. But I love the way Arkansas is flying around. I mean, I was very impressed that Texas game. I was like, wow. I say they look impressive. I mean, they play fast, they swarm to the football, and they have playmakers. And they look very, very good. Now, we'll see a test this week again against Georgia, who has a very nasty defense. And so so we'll see what Arkansas is really made of. Now, UT doesn't look as bad now. Now, they dismantled Texas Tech this past weekend. So UT looks good. Like I said, the first week after that first game, it seems like Sark has them going in the right direction. I firmly believe that. Now, that Arkansas loss doesn't look as bad now because Arkansas is straight legit like that. So now UT, Bijan Robinson, the tailback,
Yeah.
he's nice.
I mean,
He's
to
one
me,
of
it
those
still
him and
looks
Zach
bad.
Evans at sophomores, Zach Evans at TCU, told y'all he was going to be a dog. First game he ran for over 190-something yards. So give him the damn ball, though, Gary Patterson. But go ahead.
No, I'm just to me, it's still a bad loss. Either way, I mean, regardless of how good Arkansas is, if you're UT and you're going to make this run, you know you got to come out of the gates and win that game. Like
Yeah.
you got to win that first big game.
now that's a
It
quality
puts them
loss.
behind it's a quality loss, but it puts you behind the eight
If
ball,
they run the
being that
table.
you are UT already.
Yeah.
You know.
But, I say this.
I think
okay,
it's
now they lost that
extremely
game.
difficult. We've seen it
They lost
before
that-
with Baylor, be on the outside
Yeah,
looking in because
yeah.
you are right now a
Well, maybe UT
hobbled and hamstrung Big 12.
Right. Well, maybe UT figured out some things in that game, and they're starting to gel more as a team. And Sark really has his fingerprints over this team now, and he has the pulse of this team right now as the season is progressing. And then maybe they're just coming to their own. Like I said, Bijan Robinson is a special talent at running back. He's a special talent, and I like where UT is headed. Now, we'll see as the season progresses. Not crazy about Oklahoma. They shouldn't have won that game. They should not have won that game, but they did against West Virginia. But, hey, enough. Look out for Cincinnati. Cincinnati, Luke Fickell, former Ohio State player, the head coach of Cincinnati. They're 3-0 right now, and they play Notre Dame this week. If they beat Notre Dame, hey, they're on their way, and they'll probably win out, and they'll have an argument for making the playoffs as well. So, long college football season. We'll see what transpires. But you know what takes precedence right now, Eddie Cox? The NFL.
Absolutely. Week 3 was exciting. We can start with your Cowboys because I know a lot of people are talking about the Cowboys. They looked really good last night. They dominated up front. They pushed around an Eagles defensive line at times, and I was surprised to see them be that successful. And then on defense as well.
Still have questions about Connor Williams right now.
Well, let me tell you something. Connor Williams did something I don't think I've ever seen happen at the NFL level. He got fouled or got flagged for holding on a screen.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
for those of you who may not be as in depth with football like we are and understand, like the concept for the offensive lineman on the screen is to let the guy go. Let him go at the quarterback, and then you go and set up your block
That was crazy.
outside for the running back or the wide receiver, whoever the screen's going to.
Right.
But instead, he's holding the guy he's supposed to let go and let chase Dak Prescott so you can set up this screen.
Right.
That made no sense to me, and then he was flagged on the same series.
He
I think it was
power
only
driven all the
a
time.
few plays later. But whenever Kellen Moore figured out, just run to the right and get away from Connor Williams, they had a lot of success off that right side.
What about
with the likes of Ezekiel and Pollard?
Yeah, I agree. Hey, the running game, the Cowboys looked damn good last night. Philly, now I'm high on Jalen Hurts, but I really watched him last night.
He was under duress the entire
He
night.
was
I mean,
under
you got to
duress,
give Dan
but he has
Quinn
to get
credit.
better as a passer. I mean, just being more accurate. But I love the talent. I love the upside.
I mean,
But
Quinn
he still threw for
realizes.
300 yards.
Quinn realizes. Well, yeah. I mean, they were
Anytime
behind.
you
They
throw
were
the ball
throwing
that
a lot.
much,
They couldn't really
everyone
get
throws for 300
Sanders
yards now,
going.
it seems like.
Sanders had
250.
maybe a couple of runs that were over 10 yards, and that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He
Well, let
really
me say-
wasn't that much of a factor.
Right.
And they were dealing with issues on the offensive line. Brandon Brooks was not in the game. Those of you around Houston familiar with Brandon Brooks,
Devontae
former
Smith
Houston
couldn't really
Texan.
get loose, yeah.
It was just Hurts was running for his life the entire time. It felt like the pocket
he
was
was.
collapsing around him constantly. Dan Quinn used Micah Parsons off the edge, matching him up, not
tell
being
y'all
afraid,
about Micah Parsons,
not being
man.
afraid to put him on Lane Johnson, and also switch, move him over, take advantage of the young Andre Dillard, but they were not afraid to line him up over Lane Johnson and let him challenge the wily vet off the edge, and he was doing a good job, such a good job that they had to start chipping him with the running back.
Absolutely.
And he took a pretty big shot. Now I'm pretty sure he's okay, but I think I heard in the press conference afterward him talking about that shot, and they're saying at the NFL level that means that they have respect for you as a pass rusher. He's like, well, that's what comes with respect. I don't want any. Because
hey,
I mean,
love that guy's
he's a young kid. He's being honest. It's not that he's not a gamer. It's just he took a shot and it took him out of the game. That's not a guy that comes off the field very often, or just for a bang or a bruise, a bump or a bruise. He's not coming off the field. He took a shot from Gainwell. On the chip block, and hey, that just means that kid is progressing at an extremely fast rate.
Well, I'll tell you
so
what,
watch out for number 11.
He delivers shots too. And one thing I say, Michael Parsons, what I said before the season started, and much credit to Dan Quinn, the way he has these guys flying around, congregating to the football, just swarming to the football, playing with all that energy, that passion. They all know where they're supposed to be on the field. They all seem like they're happy to be playing right now because they just believe in the system, what Dan Quinn is doing. But Michael Parsons, what I was hoping that he would do, he would invigorate this team and really invigorate that energy into this team, into their defense, and that's what he's done. Just with his relentless energy and the way he's always after the quarterback. Now, I think he's only down for 1.5 sacks this season. He started playing defensive end last game, the game before last. But here's a guy, he seems like if he plays at that spot the entire season, I mean, if you want to add the quarterback pressures in there too, I mean, he is relentless in getting after the quarterback, and he can play the run, and I just love what he does. I'll tell you one thing else about that defense, Eddie. I love what Trayvon Diggs is doing.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I already knew you were going to bring his name up. I mean, he's playing really well. He did get gifted a pick six. I can't remember, was that Smith that fell down? Hey, you got to give him credit for catching the football and then taking it to the house. It was gifted to him, and he took full advantage of it. But you talk about the invigoration in the defense. You talk about like just the morale of the team and how they look. I told you that I saw a little something when I watched Hard Knocks. I saw that this team was setting their sights high, setting the bar high, because every year we always talk about, is this the year the Cowboys bust out and play as good, as they are on paper. And maybe they're not quite completely there yet, but they're starting to show signs of being headed in the right direction. But when you talk about that invigoration, to me, it comes from a healthy Dak Prescott.
Absolutely.
And seeing a healthy Dak Prescott and knowing that he's back there commanding the offense, it gives this entire team a sense of they can go all the way.
Absolutely.
And the way Dak commanded that entire game, making checks to the line of scrimmage, you could tell he had the number of the defense for the Eagles. He'd get up to the line of scrimmage. They were showing what they were doing. He was getting in the right play, and every time he'd seem to be burning them, whether it be switching to the run or which side they were going to run to or throwing a pass. You could tell he was changing. And Louis Riddick, and they probably and who else is up in the booth with Lewis? They had gone and talked about that 2, 3, 4 times because it was so evident that Dak was just changing things at the line of scrimmage and running that offense pretty much himself. Which he was just dragging Kellen Moore along with him, and this is the Dak Prescott that whenever we were getting an argument about who's going to get this much money and who deserves $40 million, this is why I say when you have a guy like that, you might as well pay him because he hadn't even got as good as he can be, and he's starting to show signs of that.
Well, he started showing it before he got hurt.
When you're impressing Peyton Manning, when you're pressing Manning by doing Manning-like things, changing the play at the line of scrimmage, and then whenever they start going into halftime, I already knew, okay, here's what the Eagles are going to do. They're going to start disguising what they're doing so that they can try to get Dak to play into their hands. We'll show one thing, make him audible to the correct play, and then we'll change our defense and try to stop it. Once they did that, then he just stopped changing the play at the line of scrimmage. They went with whatever Kellen was calling, and then they took back off in the second half after just a brief, respite early in the third quarter.
Right. First of all, of course, when I talked about Dak Prescott, I totally agree that he's the reason that defense believes, and to go along with Dan Quinn. So I appreciate you saying that because I was definitely going to go there when I talked about the offense and the presence that Dak has brought since he's come back. Everybody believes now because they see they have their leader back. And speaking of the first half real quick, what in the world was that Coach Bobo And I mean, Coach McCarthy, again, I think he turns into a coach, but somebody else. He makes the most boneheaded decisions. He did it last week with the clock management. Don't get me started on last season, all the bonehead decisions he made. What was that at the end of the first half where he did not call a timeout and he was just letting that clock?
He had
What was
two
that?
opportunities to call timeout. After third down, they had third down in a mile. He could have called timeout there and saved bukus of time. Maybe he could have saved. I think there was a minute and 20 on the clock whenever that took place, and then before forcing the Eagles to punt, I believe. He could have taken another timeout. Instead, he lets the clock run all the way down to 25 seconds. That had to be one of the stupidest things that I've ever seen anybody do. And to say that you're comfortable in a division game with a 13-point lead is just asinine. I have no idea what was going through his mind.
Whatsoever.
It's those conservative concepts that'll get you beat against the really good teams. The Eagles were banged up. They didn't have their best game, but they very well could have taking some of that early third quarter momentum they got and come right back in that game. But
against a division rival.
Fortunately for McCarthy, he didn't, so he had to answer that question, but it would have been a much tougher question had this been a one-score ball game late in the fourth, and you've got to answer questions why you decided to waste an entire minute and a half instead of give your offense, who was rolling, the opportunity to extend the lead before halftime.
Ding. Right there, what you just said, they were rolling. You have to know what your team is doing in that situation. Now, if you had an offense that had been sputtering or had been committing a lot of turnovers, or you didn't have a quarterback like Dak Prescott, the $40 million plus man who's on pace to be MVP this season, along with some other players, Derek Carr, Herbert, we can talk about some players. But you have to know who you have on your squad, the receivers you have. I mean, those decisions that he's making, they're very, very concerning because he's going to make one of those decisions or do something asinine like that in a big game, and it's going to cost the Cowboys. I mean, it's almost like, dude, haven't you been a head coach? Like, what's really going on? I mean, you do not know you're supposed to call a timeout right there, and he's sitting there looking his ass as if he's just dumbfounded. He has no idea what's going on. It's like, bro, I mean, come on, man. Kellen Moore, he's been calling a great offensive game plan every game this season, even against Tampa. Probably should have won that game if it wasn't for a few things here and there. You gave the ball back to Tom Brady, of course. But Kellen Moore, I love what he's doing. You're stacked at wide receiver. Michael Gallup's not even back. Cedric Wilson can ball. You have Zeke. I mean, again, Zeke is running like Zeke right now. Yeah, Pollard doing his thing. Keep those guys, both of them, keep giving them the ball, keep being balanced, keep letting Dak be Dak. I agree with you, Eddie. Dak is playing right now. He's playing at a higher level than probably anyone in the NFL right now.
It's the cerebral level that I'm seeing him play at.
Just his understanding of the game.
That's different.
And he's right. And he knows he has his weapons around him.
It's a different Dak.
Great leader, and I'm happy for him, man. Some of the things he's been through in his personal life, with his family, with his mom, with his brother committing suicide. I mean, I'm very happy for Dak, man. I love the way this guy carries himself, and I love him as our quarterback on that football team. So right now, Eddie, before we move on, right now the Cowboys are looking good. I love two tight ends right now. You have Swain, but you also have Dalton
Schultz.
Who
seems to be
turned
the
into a
go-to
great
guy.
tight end.
Like, he's the go-to guy.
He's the go-to guy now.
It's
So
his
you have
route
that
running
weapon, too.
ability, Greg. You can see there's a difference in the way he moves his hips compared to Blake Jarwin, where Blake Jarwin has that size, that physicality, and maybe he's still, a little.
He's coming off the ACL.
Yeah, he's still a little cautious on that on that knee. But
he's working his
Schultz,
way back too,
the way Schultz runs the route, you can tell they're using Jarwin as a decoy, and Schultz is the one that's shaking.
He's turned into a big-time tight end,
He's
bro.
shaking guys out of their shoes, and then
I love that.
his run after the catch ability has been flashed. In these past couple games. Yeah, he's definitely doing really well. And then just
we need that tight end as a weapon, man, to go with those receivers.
Well, I think you're going to see,
bro. And the two running backs.
You're going to continue to see Kellen Moore go with these two tight end sets. For one, y'all being the Cowboys can run really well out of them two tight end sets.
Right.
And then number two, because you've got two pass catching capable tight ends. One who is a secondary guy who's actually seems to be the better guy. You can get him open. You can get your best matchup on that guy, and that's what seems to have been happening. Jarwin may draw the little bit of a better cover safety, and Schultz seems to find his way to get open every single time. Now, also, I know Ezekiel Elliott looked really good last night. I can
Let him
still
get his C note.
I can tell, that he's not the same Zeke, but he did some things that showed me that he is trying his hardest to be
He
that
looks
guy,
good to me.
being pushed by.
He's not the 21-year-old Zeke.
No, obviously not 21. I'm talking about not even 2 years ago Zeke. Okay, look,
I don't know.
not even because he doesn't
But 2 years ago, they were still saying the same things about him that they're
he
saying
just
now.
he just doesn't have that.
I think he's lost some
He
weight.
made.
I think
Look,
he
let me
looks
give you a perfect
kinda
example,
swift
Greg.
again,
Let me
swift
give you a
as he can
perfect
be.
example. He made this beautiful move in the backfield
Okay.
to piece up a couple penetrators on the Eagles and cut right up the field. Turned what would have been a loss into maybe a 2-yard gain.
Okay.
But he just lacks that
That
old
explosion?
burst that he used to have that would have turned
Yeah,
that
the first
into
few
probably a
years.
first down or maybe even
Now, if
more.
you take that many hits,
I
I agree with that.
Whatever it is, I
agree
mean,
with that.
I don't.
But that's why they have Pollard.
Yeah,
to give him that.
exactly. That's
they have
that's
Pollard.
why. When
And that's why I'm cool with
that's
that.
why that 5 yards is not really that important because Pollard, not only by the way he's playing,
Mm-hmm.
but just in general, being able to come in and actually spell Zeke, this is pushing him
At a high
for
level.
one because Zeke wants those touches. He wants. He don't want to be unseated by the young man, but even now at this stage of his career, he
what I
realized
think about
it's
Zeke?
very important to have Pollard in there.
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, I
agree with
mentioned
that.
it last week. I told you,
I agree with that.
regardless of how Zeke is playing, you still got to keep him in there and let him get the lion's share of the carries
Yeah.
between the tackles. And of course, Zeke
Yeah.
does what Zeke's going to do
Yeah.
is. As long as he's putting in the work, he's going to flash from time to time.
Right.
And then if you're scheming up good runs and you've got a guy like Dak Prescott who can get up to the line of scrimmage and get you in a running play whenever you've got numbers to one side or get you in the correct, screen play or whatever, Ezekiel Elliott's going to shine.
Well,
I mean,
see,
think about how many running backs Peyton took.
Okay, let me speak on
yeah,
that.
go
Let
ahead.
me speak on that. No, those are great points, and I agree with that. I think Zeke at this point, again, he lost a lot of weight. He looks like the Zeke of old to me, other than the fact you hadn't seen Zeke bust out and run a 75-yard run. So you have Pollard coming there for that explosion, and I agree. Maybe some of those lanes that he's probably a step slower through some of those lanes, but I still think he's very, very, very effective, and he is going to get the bulk of the carries through the tackles. I mean, you're paying him all this money too, and I don't think Zeke has fallen off like a lot of people are saying. Again, he's never had that make you miss. He's always been a back that searched out contact. So he's still that guy, but I think with him losing that weight, I think he's a bit more elusive than he's been over the last couple of years. Again, he's not the 21-year-old, 22-year-old Zeke. He's taken a lot of hits, and he's not that guy. He realizes that. I agree. He realizes that Pollard is there to help him. Now, when Zeke gets to when he gets hit and he gets shaking that head, when he gets a shaking that head like that, I mean, I've always thought, damn, man, I hope Zeke don't have a concussion because he loves that contact and he'll get up from the pile, he'll start shaking that head like that. I say, Zeke want to get fed. So Zeke is the type of guy, though, again, he had 95 yards last night, averaged over 5 yards a carry. And a lot of that has to do with the other weapons that the Cowboys have, and he's seeing some lanes. I think the offensive line is doing a better job than a lot of people thought they probably would. But I think Zeke is doing his part. He's catching the ball out of the backfield. He's a great blocker. He's a great protector of Dak Prescott. So Zeke is a guy you have to give the ball, which he probably won't get at this point because you want to preserve him for the remainder of the season as well because you don't want him to get injured and you want to have that 1-2 punch. But Zeke is the guy, that's why he say, feed me, feed me. The more he gets worked up, the more he gets a lather worked up, the more dangerous he becomes, and he wears down the defense because he's so physical and he's steady coming at you. So, hey, we'll see what the Cowboys do moving forward. Obviously, right now, Eddie, the division is not looking that good with the Giants, the Washington football team, who I was never high up on, except the defensive prospects. But
I think they're going to be tough. I
mean,
mean, what can you expect out of? I mean, everybody was sort of charmed by Taylor Heineke and what he could do. But he turned into a pumpkin at midnight. That's going to happen with guys. That's going to happen with guys like him. I mean, he's not the guy
He's a
at
backup
quarterback.
Right.
We obviously know how good that defense is, and with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I feel like they would have been a formidable opponent for the Cowboys.
Because of the
but
defense,
still,
right.
keep your eye on Washington because they are, who knows what could happen. Moves can be made, things can happen, guys can emerge. We've seen them win with guys like Colt McCoy before. This is still a very good Washington football team.
especially with that defense.
The Eagles, they've got a young head coach and a young defensive coordinator. I mean, let's face it, they're just young
Yeah,
when it comes to their coaching staff.
The Giants have a lot of talent, They just cannot put all that talent together. And really, I mean, you have Saquon coming back in the fold. You have Evan Ingram at tight end. You have Daniel Jones, who showed promise. But then you have other weapons on the outside. I mean, they've had some injuries, but you would think the Giants would be better.
Yeah, well, maybe this is why you're going to see the seat of Joe Judge get hot,
It's blazing hot
really quickly. But it doesn't surprise me to see the Cowboys starting to distance themselves when you give a guy like Dak Prescott nothing to do but study, dealing with the injury that he dealt with, a lot of his rehab, a lot of the stuff he was doing, he had nothing but time to study. And you could tell when they got into the game against a division opponent and a hated division opponent in Philly, Dak was ready and he knew what that defense was going to do inside and out. And I know Zeke looked great. But I'm giving a lot of that credit to Dak Prescott because Dak Prescott was getting them in the perfect call every single time, and it's just if that continues, if that trend continues, Greg, I'm telling you, that
you believe in this?
I believe in Dak Prescott. I do. I believe in the system that they're running right now, I believe that they've got. I believe that they've got good, solid youth on defense that is. That's priceless at this level. When you've got exuberant, fast, young guys that are only going to get better, that's whenever, big things start happening. Because, I could see Micah Parsons, even as well as he's playing now,
that Javon
playing
Curse guy
even
that
better
converted cornerback to safety, number 27, like 6'3", whatever. He can go. He's nice, man. I like him a lot. And
a lot of that has to do.
And we'll see Malik Hooker starting to come on slowly but surely.
Yeah, they're getting him. They got him. He's not out on the field, the whole time.
Yeah, right.
But Dan Quinn just shows a great understanding of knowing how to maximize what his defensive guys are good at doing and let their attributes shine in certain scenarios. And that's what he's done really well. He's done it real well with Parsons. You're starting to see Smith start to look good, starting to look a little bit like he did, a couple years ago. And then a secondary that has been severely lacking for the past several years now looks competent and aggressive.
Yeah.
And people were saying there was no way that was going to happen, letting I'm drawing a blank on him right now, walk out the door, the safety corner mix.
Oh, you're talking about for Byron Jones?
Yeah. There was all the talk was,
he's
crazy for
like
letting him walk out the door as bad as that secondary is. But now
I thought he should have been probably a better safety, but no, he's showing me he's going to be a superb corner.
Look what coaching can do, though. Okay, you can do more with less when you've got good coaching. And Dan Quinn seems like he's right there back on his way to building a championship caliber defense.
Hey, I agree. Now, of course, I want to get your take on the Texans, man, your squad. Of course, we're going to talk Astros, MLB, the St. Louis Cardinals. They're 16 games in a row and running. If they win 17 in a row, no one has done that in the National League since 1936. So that's the way you want to go into the MLB playoffs, surging like that. And we'll talk about that, how that relates to the Astros, who seem to be trending the opposite direction. But, of course, Tom Brady lost this past weekend to the Rams. I want to get your take on the Rams and their chances. They're looking like one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC. Now, the Texans played. Now, let's not forget about the Texans. They played Carolina, another 3-0 team right now, last Thursday. What was your take on the Texans, and how did you see them progressing forward during the season?
I don't know. I think we're going to find out a lot more this Sunday when they allow the young Davis Mills to do a little bit more. Coming into the game as the backup, replacing Tyrod Taylor in the middle of the week against Cleveland, and then having to turn right back around and play on Thursday doesn't give you a lot of time to implement some wrinkles into the playbook that can help your rookie shine, that can sort of highlight the things that he does differently than, let's say, a Tyrod Taylor, obviously. The Texans they were no match really for the scheme of the Panthers. I talked about it a little bit before. They move guys around on the defensive line a lot. This offensive line, while at times, has been better so far this year, they still struggle, with a really savvy blitz or a team that knows how to, delay blitz or stunt certain gaps. And the Texans struggled with that. There were times, though, where I thought for sure Davis Mills wasn't going to have time to throw the football, and he was able to. So it's showing me that there's growth.
He's looking better than a lot of these rookie quarterbacks. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, there's growth along that offensive line, but it was clearly, it was clear that they were not let's say, unleashing Davis Mills on Carolina. They were more just trying to get through that game.
Right.
And then now you've got a 10-day period where you can plan for, what may be the best team in the AFC in the Buffalo Bills, which is going to be a real tall task. For me, I know the defense is really good, but more so that offense. We're going to find out a lot about Lovie Smith if what he's done so far with the Texans is going to be sustainable. I know they're middle of the road right now, but it was a whole different ball game when Tyrod Taylor was running the offense.
It was.
And all of a sudden, we were looking at a Texans team that may look like they're going to beat one of the best teams in the AFC, and then who knows what happens against Carolina. You can play the what if game over and over again. When he goes out, it almost makes you wonder how hard are the Texans going to try to win, without Tyrod Taylor? Because Davis Mills could light it up.
For a high draft pick,
but
the highest draft pick is possible.
Yeah, maybe so. Davis Mills could light it up, but I don't think that he's going to. I don't think he's going to take the Texans to the playoffs or anything.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong.
That'll be a situation where they want him to improve each week. But if they're looking for a high draft pick, maybe the team doesn't do as good as a whole.
Well, we'll
but
see.
You still want to see players progress in the process of losing games.
When they take the training wheels off of him, which they're going to this coming Sunday, when they take the training wheels off of him, I guess we'll see. If he goes out there and has a 4 interception, Zach Wilson type of performance. Take the training wheels off? They pretty much said so. If you listen to Dave Culley's
Brandon Cooks
press conference, I believe the quote was he's going to put more on his plate.
Baltimore.
He's going to put more on his plate. And that, to me, that means that they're going to try to go in there with a game plan for a guy who was the entrenched starter, not necessarily the backup or not necessarily a rookie. And we talked about it last week. What do you have to do if you're going to win a game like that? You got to go out there with a rookie, and you got to take shots that the other team's not prepared for you to take. That's how guys or teams like that jump up and bite some of these better teams. They go out there and they start throwing the football all over the yard. That's pretty much what we saw Arkansas do to A&M right out of the gate. Not to jump back to college football, but you thought Arkansas was going to come out and run the dog out of the football. What did they do? They're looking deep right off the bat, and they stun these guys, and they end up with what was essentially an upset. May not be an upset when we look at things retrospectively at the end of the season.
Right.
However, right now it was a pretty damn good upset for a rising and trending upward Arkansas team. And so if the Texans want to channel some of that energy, they could do the same thing. If the rookie quarterback starts playing well, teams get excited about that kind of thing. You get a young guy in there, he's playing above maybe what he's expected to be playing or the level he's expected to be playing at.
Now, he's a second rounder, wasn't he?
Who's that, Mills?
Mills.
Third.
Okay, third rounder. That's still high for a quarterback.
And there's been links. There was links to him to multiple teams in the throughout the draft process. He was a guy who was thought if the quarterback group coming out that year wasn't so good that maybe he would have been a second or a first round pick. It was just there were so many guys that the quarterback needy teams were all going to take in the first round that some of these better guys were going to drop down to the second and even the first half of the third round. That was just by the nature of the beast.
Right.
And when teams start drafting by need, based off taking a flyer on a quarterback. But the Texans, that was their first pick of their draft, so that says what they thought about him. That was the guy they took number one. You could debate all day whether or not they wanted Kellen Moore, who was taken just before Davis Mills when Minnesota traded up. But the way I've seen Nick Caserio operate,
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Mond.
Kellen
Mond. Not Kellen Moore.
I was like, say, damn, Kellen Moore, he's back playing football now.
Kellen Mond. I just misspoke.
Okay.
But the way Nick Caserio so far has been operating, he doesn't seem like a guy who's oblivious to somebody trying to jump up and get his guy. Maybe he wanted Mond, but they were content with not going up and getting him. To him, there wasn't that much of a difference in Mond or Davis enough to go and move up and get him or to try to compete with whatever the Vikings were offering, which really it wasn't that much. And as we already know, they were operating, with a limited draft capital to begin with.
Right.
Now, going back to the game in Carolina, while we're talking about the draft, they did make some moves using some of that little draft capital to target the guys that they really did want. So if they really did want Mond, they would have targeted him.
Right.
They really wanted Nico Collins, and they targeted him.
Yeah, they went and got him.
Let me tell you, there were moments in time where you're looking at a guy like Nico Collins, and you're like, there's that physicality at the receiver position the Texans have been missing Not just since DeAndre Hopkins, because DeAndre Hopkins is a physical receiver in the sense that he's very tough. Mm-hmm. He can make, catches in tight windows and tight spaces. Hands are very strong. He's going to hold his own. But he's not going to push anybody around.
Right.
And not like an Andre Johnson used to. And I'm not trying to say Nico Collins is Andre Johnson. I'm not getting ahead of myself. But he added a physicality to that receiving core that I haven't seen there since an Andre Johnson was there. And I remember Johnson his rookie year, while he was really good and really fast, he was still a tad bit raw, So just think about what can happen when Nico Collins gets a little bit better, comes back from injury, gets back into that offense, hopefully maybe plays with Tyrod Taylor or an ascending Davis Mills. Let's see. But the person who can come out looking the best at the end of this game with the Buffalo Bills, to me, against the Buffalo Bills, is Lovie Smith. He can come out looking the best. If he goes out there and has a defense or puts a defense on the field that can limit this Buffalo team to, let's say, 21, 24 points, which, you could still win at any level with 24 points, but seeing the way that they play and how they're starting to really catch their stride.
That wasn't Buffalo. That wasn't Miami they played, huh? But Josh Allen threw 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Was it Miami?
Now, Miami had just gotten bludgeoned. I think Miami
Washington,
actually won.
They beat Washington.
Okay, the Washington football team.
But Miami, I believe Miami played the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, go ahead.
Where was I at with Buffalo? Yeah, Lovie Smith can be the guy coming out looking the best. If the Texans are in this game, everybody's going to want to talk about the quarterback because obviously they're going to be scoring some points if they're going to hang with the Bills. But I'm going to want to talk about Lovie Smith and how even though pieces keep falling out of the defense, they've still been able to put something out there that's going to be pesky. It's going to be disruptive one way or another. They're getting after the quarterback. They're getting pressure with 4. They're not blitzing anybody. Mm-hmm. They're getting after the quarterback with the front 4, which at the NFL level, they say the best teams, so many years you see the teams that do that the best end up in the Super Bowl. The Giants, for so many years, the years they went to the Super Bowl, that's all you were getting was Tuck and Pierre-Paul off the edge, and that's it. You're not getting any blitzers or anything like that.
Right.
If Lovie Smith can do that and show that this Texans team is able to do that, even though they traded away Roby, even though Justin Reed went down, even though they're having all these other issues with injuries, then that's going to show. That's going to tell me that. That's going to tell me that the Texans may have something brewing here with their coaching because it's not just Lovie that I've been impressed by. Even though they haven't really done anything to say woohoo, but it's obvious that there's competency there. Like competence there. You can see it with Tim Kelly.
What David Culley has brought to this.
I think David Culley is just sitting back and letting these guys do their job.
That's it. He's a player's coach, but again, I just like they want to go play for him. There's some coaches you just want to run through a brick wall for. He seems like he's one of those guys. So when you're out there, not only are you playing to keep your job, but you want to make sure that this guy is successful as well. You like your head coach that much that you want to make sure he succeeds. So that gives you that extra oomph to really go out there and do your job, that extra focus and that extra push. So I like where the Texans are headed as far as a culture standpoint as well. Now, we'll see. Now, speaking of that Carolina game, Christian McCaffrey, speaking of Carolina, he's out for the next few weeks. We'll see what that does to Carolina's chances. And Sam Darnold, I like Chuba Hubbard as a backup plan. I think he's going to be vowing to get on the field a lot more because Chuba can play. Hey. Now, he's not going to be the pass receiver, but the Cowboys have Carolina coming up this weekend as well, so that should be a good matchup, as good as Carolina's defense is and the way our offense is. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, Eddie, I want to ask you about these rookie quarterbacks. Of course, I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. My cousin in the Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, put a whooping on them, and the Chargers are looking legit. And Kansas City, who I picked to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, I'm not wavering off that right now because I think they're going to get it together. But they're last in their division right now. If you look at what the Raiders are doing, what Denver is doing, now we'll see if that's sustainable. Now, of course, I think the Chargers are going to get not the Chargers. The Chiefs are going to get it together and keep rolling. I think they're going to be just fine, but they have to be careful because you have a Chargers team that's up and coming, and they seem to be headed in the right direction. And again, the Raiders are playing some ball right now. David Carr is playing at a high level. He's playing at an MVP type pace thus far. So you got to commend John Gruden for the job he's doing right now. You have Barber in the running back now with the Raiders, and what's his name? Philip Barber. Mm-hmm. Is that his name? He's doing a great job at running back, substituting for your
For
boy out of
Josh,
Alabama,
Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. So, and then you have Ruggs taking the top off of the defense. So we'll see if that contends or if all that did was wake Kansas City up. But I like what Herbert is doing with the Chargers. But my boy in Chicago, bro, now you've been on the record. I have to give you credit on this. Now, my stance has not changed, and this is not me being stubborn or this and that. All these rookie quarterbacks that's going through it right now, I never said that they were going to hit the ground running. And I've always said you have to go through the fire, you have to go through the growing pains, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've only won. They're 1-10 right now as a unit as rookie quarterbacks. This highly touted rookie class. I mean, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, it can go on and on and on. Justin Fields, the way he looked last week, even though we'll talk about that in a second. But these guys, of course, Trey Lance, they're putting them in here and there with the 49ers. But these rookie quarterbacks have to go through some growing pains, and that's what they're doing. If you look at Troy Aikman, if you look at, matter of fact, I was listening to my boy Michael Irvin the other day, and he was talking about how Justin Fields, as we move to Justin Fields real quick, how, see, because I don't know how that's going to do to him mentally. I've heard you say that before about the mental effect that it could have, but we can talk about that in a second too. But my thing is, he didn't say that with Troy Aikman. When Troy Aikman got beat up, and I love Michael Irvin, does a great job. He's one of the reasons I wanted to go to the University of Miami before Ohio State came calling, and Miami did not come calling. I mean, trust me. But Michael Irvin Troy Aikman went through the lumps. 1-15 his first season. Got beat up, got beat around. He had the mental fortitude to know that things were going to get better. So if you have the wrong quarterback in that regard, you missed out. But I don't think Justin Fields is that guy. But what is your take on the way that game unfolded?
I mean, he was terrible. But
the game plan was terrible.
This to me, like I said, Greg, when we were talking about Davis Mills and why, the people who can come out of next week's game for the Texans looking so good would be that coaching staff. Lovie Smith for the defense, and then Tim Kelly for the offense, because how he's getting a rookie quarterback to play, relatively clean football. Limited football that was, but clean. It just shows the ability to understand what your guy can do, what he's ready for, and then not put too much on his plate there. We'll see. Like
Chicago,
I said,
we're talking about a whole different game plan right here with Chicago.
When you get to talking about Chicago, we're talking about a guy who I have no confidence in Matt Nagy.
Bro, Eddie, let me interject real quick, and then I want to get your take on that. And, of course, Trevor Lawrence is looking bad. Hey, objects are closer than they appear, again, in the NFL. And they're learning, him and Zach Wilson and these guys, and they're learning right now. And, again, but they're on bad teams, and they're going to grow. They're going to be great quarterbacks. I really believe that. So it's good that they're going through it right now, because at some point, again, Peyton Manning, he led the league in interceptions his rookie year, but you have to have the mental fortitude to know things are going to get better. And obviously, the organization has to put the right talent around you. And so those guys are going to get better. As the season progresses, they're going to get better. And I think those guys are going to be great quarterbacks. But right now, they're going through their learning curves and realizing that this is the NFL and it's not college football. Now, Matt Nagy, bro, let me tell you what happened, Eddie. I didn't actually watch that game, right, because it was 2 other games on. I didn't go out anything like that. And so I saw one of the announcers say, they flashed the score, Justin Fields has been sacked. First it was 5 times, and then it's, 9 times. I'm saying to myself before I even seen the highlights, I said, bro, it got to be a catch to that. I mean, I know my man is a rookie and all this and that, and he could have done some things better in that game when we talk about that. He needs to get rid of the ball. On some of those situations I noticed when they were sacking him like that, the game plan was hard. But I said to myself when I saw that, I said, there has to be a catch. That has to be Matt Nagy and his inefficiency as a head coach. And I heard Orlovsky say that he had to do that on purpose, or he suggested that that's possible. Now, of course, that's speculation, and you would think, nah, it wouldn't be in his best interest to do something like that because he needs to win and all this and that. But this is why I go back to the point all the time. It probably would be in his best interest, but I see people sabotage themselves all the time and make dumb mistakes just because they want to posture and prove a point. And I said to myself when I saw that score and when they said they got sacked 9 times, I said, there's something fishy about that. And it's something fishy about that game plan.
Greg, thanks,
was that a setup, or what now?
So you think
or is he just
Matt
that
Nagy
inefficient?
set him up for failure
Man,
so that
told y'all he's not ready. No, I mean now he's gonna have an excuse to put him back on the. I mean I don't know, man. It's just how can you be that dumb?
look?
in your play calling?
I don't think either of them were ready. They thought that they were ready to unleash an offense.
You gotta put a better game plan.
What they needed to do was they needed to run the Andy Dalton offense. Okay, run that.
Why did he get sacked 9 times?
Run that Andy Dalton offense that Justin Fields has been preparing as the backup for. Don't try to change too much. Fields wasn't ready for it.
Here's what you have to do, though, Eddie. I don't mean to cut you off right there, but here's what you have to do if you're Matt Nagy. And like I've heard a lot of people suggest, and it's so true. You know what you have when you draft him at that position. You should already have a game plan ready. You have to roll him out of the pocket. You cannot just have him drop back. And when you said last week, that's why last week when we were talking about him possibly playing this week, well, he was going to play. He was thrust into the fire because of the injury to Andy Dalton. That's why you didn't hear me all gung-ho like, yeah. Even though I'm ready for him to play, I feel that you should play while you're young, go through the growing pains. I do agree with that. And then you get in sync with your offensive line. The offensive lineman over there, what's his name? Trent Williams?
Williams for
Chicago. 36 years old?
Yeah.
I think he's still in his stance right now. I mean, damn, he has looked terrible, man. But the thing about it is, man, you just I kind of lost my train of thought right there.
When you talk about Williams being awful, he's like a turnstile, and you talk about Fields taking too many sacks.
Well, but the thing about it, you have to roll him out of the pocket, and you have to have a game plan ready for him in a situation like that. You can't. That's why last week, here's what I was saying. That's why last week when we were in here, I wasn't so gung-ho about it because I'm saying to myself, they're playing a Cleveland team who a lot of people have already been saying that they're not playing up to the level that they should be playing at. So you know you had a Cleveland team with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney coming in hungry because they want to prove that they were a legitimate defense. But if you're going to put them out there, if you have to put them out there, you have to have a better game plan. Now, granted, there was a couple of those sacks, and now he realizes, too, since being out there playing, you can't just run away from people like you did in college. That's why I say, man, you have to get on the field, get used to this game speed. Now, you also have to have a coach that can put you in the best position to succeed. And I've said it before about Chicago. They don't have the weapons outside yet, but you have to work to his strengths, get him outside the pocket, have him do some things. Now, what he has to do better, he has to be able to realize when that pressure is coming, and you have to find that outlet. There's a couple of those sacks that I saw. If he was just a quicker thinker, or when he watches the film, he can see that a couple of those passes, you throw it to your outlet. You had your fullback right there in the flat. You had this person, only on a couple of those. But most of those, he was just running for his life.
Right. And Daryl brings up a great point. We love it when listeners correct us. Trent Peters is who you're talking about.
Trent Peters. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Cuzzo.
Not Williams. That's what kind of had me stumped. Williams.
Okay.
Remember, San Francisco traded for him. He's in
Is
San
it Trent
Francisco.
Peters? It's Peters. I know his last name is
Jason.
Peters. Okay, Jason Peters. But he's still in the stands.
Was it the one that was in Philly, right? And then he went to
wasn't
Chicago.
he retired? I think that.
Yeah, he was in Philly for most of his career,
him,
and then he
him,
retired.
him.
And that's where
Him and Trent Williams.
he put you mean Peter. He put Trent is in San Francisco. You mean Peters.
Appreciate it, cuz.
But he's talking about Peters from.
Hey, we don't have producers
Philly.
out here to correct us yet.
But I know I that's just what confused me. I was like, Williams, I thought he was in San Francisco. They traded. He's old too. But he's at least 35 or 36.
He's 36
himself. But look,
and he played like he was 46 the other day.
Now back to what you're talking about with the Bears and their game plan. They should have tried to come in and run the football a whole lot better. You had David Montgomery coming off his best game against an aggressive Rams defense. Mm-hmm. He 16 for 100. What was it? 108. Okay, he had a touchdown and he had a reception as well. Why would you then turn around and try to go away from that? You got Justin Fields, 6 of 20. Okay, what are you doing? It just doesn't make sense.
He was one-on-one for a long time. I'm like, damn.
You have success running the football against one of the best teams in the league. Mm-hmm. Look, Joe Woods over there calling the defense for Cleveland. He's no dummy. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he was born on a day, but it wasn't yesterday. He realizes that Justin Fields is a rookie quarterback, and he's got some of the most explosive pass rushers and have one of the most deceptive defenses in the league. I mean, this is a guy coming off of he's learned under the likes of Robert Saleh, who else? Mike Zimmer. Mm-hmm. This guy knows how to take advantage of a rookie quarterback. So if you think you're going to go into the game and just unleash this weapon, I don't know what Matt Nagy was thinking. They should have leaned on David Montgomery in that running game, and so be it. If you're taking your lumps and then you got to open the playbook up to Justin Fields because you're getting the dog beat out of you, then you do it that way. But I think you got to give your offensive line and your quarterback an opportunity to settle into the game and to have success in the running game. You ask any football coach out there, what makes things easy for a young quarterback?
A formidable opponent like that.
What makes things easy for a young quarterback? Think about it. Think about when Dak first came into the league what makes things the easiest for a young quarterback? What makes the game easiest for a young quarterback? Think about, like I said, Dak when he first came into the league. Absolutely. 4th round draft pick, a guy who I know for a fact they were cutting the field in half for him, but he was still able to make throws and find open receivers. Why? Because the running game was so damn good. All right, they should have leaned on it. I'm not saying theirs is great, but when you got your running back hot coming off his best game against the best defense in the league, a defense that just shut down one of the most explosive offenses in Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, that defense, we saw you continue to feed the rock to David Montgomery, who is slowly but surely starting to get a whole lot better.
Yeah.
I was just
now he can play. I was just
disappointed.
No, you're right. I mean, I was disappointed in the game plan as well, but at the same time, I'm not here to act like Justin Fields. I mean, he definitely has growth, but again, I like when they play and go through that. He can look at the film, but he is going to have some type of protection. I didn't know the offensive line was that bad, but again, if they're that bad, as a head coach, you have to know that, and you have to design a game plan. Like
10 carries though it's just to me that's just pathetic.
Yeah, for Dave Montgomery.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. Okay, moving on. So we'll see what happens this week with all those rookie quarterbacks. See if they can catch their footing some. And if they can learn from some things that has happened. Of course, they're going to have some help, like I say, and not only from the players that's on the field, but some of the coaches, the coaching as well. So we'll see how everything plays out. It's only week 3. They've only played 3 games in the NFL, so no reason to panic.
Now, look,
what do you think about the Rams?
Okay, that's what I was saying. Since we're pitched for time, we're going to talk about Rams. We're going to talk about Rams, Patriots. For sure, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit about exactly what happened with your brother's Chargers and the Chiefs. As the Chiefs, yes, your cousin. I always want to say your brother.
Okay.
As we see the Chiefs fall to 1-2, a place they're not used to being. We all know that team's better than 1-2, but could we start to see them slide a little bit? Have teams, in particular, the teams in their division, because let's face it, around the league. Kansas City still plays, really good football. I could see them easily, whipping every team in the AFC South, yada yada. They didn't lose to the Ravens last Sunday. They lost to Lamar Jackson. Let's just be real. They lost to Lamar Jackson.
What about that field goal by Justin Tucker?
The 66-yarder.
Hit the crossbar, but it went in.
But, this is a Chiefs team, while they've been feasting on the league within their division, they've been played really tough the past couple years. Yeah. And because those teams realize, the type of juggernaut that they're playing. Las Vegas has played them really well and beat them. I want to say San Diego, but it's Los Angeles has played them really well.
I'm still trying to get used to that too.
And has beat them.
Los Angeles has gotten used to it. Hyping up Herbert.
Justin Herbert, maybe. We were talking about the Chargers last week, and I remember, we were talking about how they're adjusting to life after Anthony Lynn and Pep Hamilton, and now they have a defensive-minded head coach. But it just takes a few weeks for that offense really to start to gel, because Justin Herbert didn't show signs to me throughout the season of a one-hit wonder. He showed me signs of a guy that may step back or have a slide back week where he doesn't play his best, but he always bounces back. And then we see that again this year, bouncing back, going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. Were you watching that game, Greg?
Yeah, of course.
The interception at the end. You think Mahomes put a little too much sauce on that off his back foot? Should have never made that throw, but that's what he does.
Right. And that's what he has to be cognizant of moving forward as far as the Chiefs are concerned. I think the Chiefs, they go in there, the sea of red in the stands, and, of course, the Chargers are coming in here. I think they knew that the Chargers were a great team, or an up-and-coming team with a great young quarterback. I love what my cousin is doing with the receivers. Look at Mike Williams. He's helped elevate his game to another level, so he's in those guys' ear, and he's coaching them up very well. And the whole coaching staff is doing a great job right now for the Chargers, and I think that's going to continue. But I think with the Chiefs, the Chiefs read all the press clippings about how good they are. Mahomes reads all the press clippings about how good he is, and that's why he can drop back and throw off this foot and throw off that foot. They're going to the Super Bowl, like I said they would do, meet my Dallas Cowboys. And so what's happening is the defense is awful. The defense is plumb awful right now. They're not stopping the run. And as far as the offense is concerned, I think they put themselves into a position too often to where they're out there and they're overconfident and they're thinking that they can just come back whenever they want against whoever they want. And a lot of these teams right now, this being the third or fourth season since Mahomes has been in the fold, now they're starting to watch a lot of film and they're finding ways to help contain Tyrese. Hey, they're keeping everything in front of them. Everything in front of them. You're not going to take the top off of defense. And you have to be more. You have to protect the football, and you can't just throw off the back foot, make sides, make no look throws all the time. Even though that pass should have been caught, but you have to focus more and realize that these teams are out to get you, and you can lose on any given Sunday. So I think they'll refocus, and I think they'll be just fine.
Well, I mean, no doubt there's a target on their back. They're the most explosive team in the NFL. But let's face it, what they're really reeling from, Greg, is. Man, I bet you they sure do wish they had Kareem Hunt,
Yeah.
because they have. It's clear
turnovers with Allaire.
The magic bag of tricks that they've been going to be able to produce elite offensive power without having that true between the tackle runner. Damian Williams, bless his heart. Damian Williams did about as good as you could, even better than you could have expected him to do. But he still, they were still.
Since he opted out.
No, he's not with them anymore.
He's not in the NFL, I don't think. Is he?
Yes, he is.
Is he? Okay.
Yes.
I know he opted out.
No, he is. He is still in the NFL. But just my point being, they haven't had that legitimate between the tackle runner, and it shows at times. Yeah. And like you said, now
that can be. If just teams protect the football.
If teams are willing to just sell out on the pass, they're going to put two safeties back, in the back, and say, "Hey, you're not going to throw on us. We're going to force you to beat us with the run."
Right.
And the Chiefs haven't been able to do that for these past couple of years. They've been dominant using the short passing game and screen game as their running game, and then they'll surprise you here and there. But if you ever had a Chiefs running back, the likes of Damian Williams or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're not talking about, you have them on your fantasy squad, we're not talking about them getting the majority of their points from counters and leads or anything like that. These guys are catching the ball out of the backfield. They're running draws. They're doing things like that. This offense severely needs to have the ability to take their foot off the throttle and being able to run the ball.
It can't be that guy. He just has to protect the football.
Well,
he runs well when he's not fumbling.
That is true, but I feel like he just lacks a little bit of size there. I mean, that's why
they drafted him in the first round.
I still can't believe they let Hunt get out the door. I understand everything that happened. I understand that, but you see why Cleveland is so good. And their ability to run the football. But think about it. The Mahomes magic.
Thick, man.
You when you go, I just don't see the power. I just don't see no power.
You know what?
I'm just saying what I see. Maybe he doesn't get the opportunity. Maybe he doesn't get the opportunity because I can go look right now. He's probably bottom third of the league when it comes to carries.
Well, I don't know, but the times I've seen him this season, he's been gaining some yards. I mean, look up his yards per carry. I mean, he's been effective.
But you're understanding that it's because teams are selling out to stop the pass, and they know
but what I'm saying is he's a first-round draft pick, so the talent is there. I mean, I know the guy has the goods to be a damn good running back. You saw him last year before they really stopped giving him the ball or he got hurt, but he has protected the football. I think I'm more concerned with him as protecting the football. At least, and he's never been known as a guy that fumbled all the time anyway at LSU. So you're saying that you don't believe in him as a big time running back. But I think on that team, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire can be a damn good running back and a great weapon.
With the looks that he's getting up front, he should be slashing defenses.
He has to hold on to the football.
He should be.
Well, they have to commit to the run too, more so than not. And also, as far as an offensive scheme, you know what's going to happen before we move on? You know what's going to happen now? These teams that's about to play Kansas City right now, Kansas City feeling like that they're in a hole and they're last in their division. They are last in their division, only one game, but you have the Raiders at 3-0. And so a couple of games in that regard. The defense is just going to have to get better, but you're going to have to score like 40 points a game to beat them because the offense is going to be that much more focused and they're going to be that much more honed in. And I think they're going to realize, hey, we may have to score on every possession. They have the ability to. They've been moving up and down the field. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, it's a lot of teams that's a lot better, though.
They've had some moving around on that offensive line, guys leave town, bringing some guys in.
Yeah.
We've seen in the playoffs, in particular in the Super Bowl, how whenever you can get them one-dimensional, as they like to go, and you can get after Mahomes, they're very beatable. You get a couple hits on Mahomes, you get him hobbling around. He's not as magical anymore. He's not as accurate. They're not as good.
They have to commit to the run.
So, and maybe they need to. I'm like I said, I'm not saying it's not scheme.
Like
all I'm saying is they are lacking sorely what they used to have in Kareem Hunt. If they had a back like him that they know they could unleash him between the tackle and they weren't afraid to do it,
I definitely admit that
they would be a much better squad.
That's
what a sign. This is a sign of a team that's been
doing. They
never
had Kareem Hunt when they had Mahomes in there, though.
Right, but this is a sign of a team.
That offense.
Right, I get that, but they were, like I said, they were able to go to this pass happy, use that short passing game as your running game. You can only do that for so long. It's been so many years now. Teams are, the Chiefs are going to outrun you, but eventually you catch on. And whenever the bounces go,
they have film on them.
When the bounces go your way, you're going to win those games. It used to be the bounces could go your way, and you're still going to lose to the Chiefs. Think about the 24-0 loss in the playoffs by the Texans. The bounces went their way, and they still got their asses kicked. Now
teams are better, man.
Now it's looking like that the Chiefs, like you're saying, they're going to have to play a clean game. They're going to have to do.
Right.
If they develop a better running game, that'll open some more things up that have suddenly closed, or some of those doors that are now.
I totally agree with that, and that's why I said before the season I thought they were going to. Their plan was to lean on the running game more to really be more balanced, and I still think Allaire went healthy, and then you substitute him with Holmes. But I think Allaire went healthy. If he holds on to the ball like we know he can do, I think he can be very
I'm just
effective
surprised
in
I
that
haven't
run game,
seen
but they have to
him.
commit to it.
Yeah.
The boy Josh Gordon, the cat with 20 lives. That signed with him.
But that's the thing is, they bring in Josh Gordon, but that's another thing that shows no commit to the run game. I know they're just taking a flyer on him, but I was surprised not to see them go after
type of guy.
A Latavius Murray or somebody like that, or call up the Texans about one of the guys they have. Get you a between the tackles runner. Get you somebody who can go in there and do that for you, and it may change things for that offense entirely. An offense so far, I expect them to be better throughout the season. Obviously,
suggestions right now.
This is an offense so far that just seems like we've seen it with Andy Reid before. Teams catch on, and you've got a bunch of guys that have been playing, I think, above their level of play. When you talk about the back end of that roster and their receivers, Demarcus Robinson, Pringle, Miko Hardman, these are all guys that the only reason that they're on that roster is because they have elite speed and they struggle at almost everything else. I know Hardman can be your returner, but they don't have the best hands. They don't run the best routes. You catch them out of position all the time. At what point do you go away from some of those guys at times and start running a more traditional offense, a more balanced offense? I just feel like that's what they're really missing.
Yeah, I totally agree. They should be more balanced, and we'll see what Andy Reid does. Obviously, don't want to question the acumen of Andy Reid as a play caller, and you know what you have at quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see if he throws less passes and they depend on the run game more, just to keep the defense honest and to really have a more balanced attack. We shall see. But again, it's just too much talent on the team for me to really get up in arms right now about them being 1-2. And a lot of that is due to their own doing of being careless with the football and just not staying focused. But time will tell. Again, it's early in the season. It's some very talented teams in that division, in the conference. Again, what the Bills are doing right now, on and on and on. Now, also, Eddie,
Vegas is
what you
good.
think about the Rams, the way they're looking right now?
Look,
Speaking of Kansas City real quick, Josh Gordon, how is he getting another chance? I'm glad he is. I hope he's cool. But they're still hoping on the Josh Gordon from 2014, and I just don't think it's going to be there. Josh Gordon is the type of guy, he just walks in the room, and you see what kind of shape he's in. You're like, sign him to a contract. He's 30 years old now. Hopefully he still has something left, and I wish him well. But you're talking about a guy who keeps getting opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. We shall see.
Well, you can talk yourself into it if he's in shape and he doesn't really have a lot of tread off the tire. He's even though he's 30, how many full NFL seasons has he played? 2, maybe?
So he should be fresh.
Total. If you look at how many games played he has on his legs, Is he going to be just as explosive?
Even though he had
no, but what do they not have? Big guys, aside from Kelsey. They need somebody out on the edge.
Don't get me wrong, I like the sign.
No, I hate it. I hate it.
Like it for Kansas City's sake.
I hate it.
I know you do.
Because, there's a lot of other teams out there that could use a guy like him.
Yeah.
But then again, it also shows me that they're not ready to commit to the run.
Well, I mean, like you said, they're taking a flyer on him, and they're going to see what he has left, and if he can help in any kind of way, he's going to help.
Now,
so they just scooped him up.
What do you think about this
Rams,
Sunday? Oh, okay. Oh, you want to talk about the Rams?
Well,
real quick?
not really.
No,
I
that's
just think
fine.
they're looking very good right now, and they're the team. They may be the team to beat in the NFC.
Preseason,
of course,
everybody
Tom Brady,
that
I'm
was
not gonna
everybody's
overreact on that.
sweetheart. You know, everybody's sweetheart. You felt like the Rams the year they went to the Super Bowl, was it 2 years ago or 2 or so years ago, they went to the Super Bowl. You felt like they were the better team, like they had the team to win it, had they just had a better quarterback.
Right.
And Matthew Stafford is a guy
open up the playbook, which they're doing.
Yeah, year after year he's been, one of the top performing quarterbacks. He's got some of the best tools that any quarterback has in his tool bag. When you talk about his ability to navigate the pocket, arm strength, still has the ability to use his legs, not afraid to run, tough. It can play through some injuries, and just a smart guy, and still big arm. And but you don't really
make every throw. And you have
it's
Deshaun
hard to
Jackson
appreciate
now,
what
who's
he
as
has
fast
done.
As he is.
Yeah,
I've been watching him in high school.
It's been hard to appreciate Matt Stafford because he's been in Detroit. So he may have not gotten the from people who aren't the big football heads, maybe like me and you are. He hasn't gotten the love or the respect, or the notoriety that maybe he deserves. And now people see him with the opportunity with a team ready-made for a Super Bowl, just like Tampa was last year. Ready-made defense and everything with some offensive playmakers already on the roster. Then you add a guy. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to rewrite the Buccaneers stories and just write out and put Rams, because think about it, bringing in a veteran speedy receiver or a veteran receiver, Deshaun Jackson. What did the Bucs do? They brought in Antonio Brown.
Right.
I mean, but basically, here we go. We can keep going on down the list. There's several, mirrors or similarities between what these two teams have done, and you bring in Matthew Stafford, and look, it's worked. It's worked really well.
Because you combine a guy who, with his talent and arm strength and arm talent, with a play caller like Sean McVay. Now Sean McVay, again, he's just opened up the playbook. And now you have a guy, you have Cooper Kupp, but you also have Robert Woods, two great receivers. Kupp, you cannot stop him. He can run any route on the field. Great precision route runner. Then you have a guy who you have to worry about taking the top off the defense at 34 years old, who can still go get it. He's still hungry. He's playing on a fast track. So you can, and as innovative and creative and the offensive mind that Sean McVay has to go with the talent. I've always known that Matthew Stafford had the talent ever since he was at Georgia. I mean, we're talking about the first pick in the draft when he was drafted. So he's put up the gaudy numbers in Detroit. He just wasn't playing on a good team, obviously, with the Lions. Now he's on a team that has all that talent around him, and they're definitely blossoming, man.
And think about how excited Sean McVay is that he can just draw up anything he wants and know that Matt Stafford has the capability to execute it. You couldn't draw up anything you can imagine for Jared Goff. He just doesn't have the arm talent for that. Yeah. Stafford does. And it was evident with how they've used Deshaun Jackson so far this year. But you know what you get with Deshaun Jackson? He's going to go out there and he's going to stir for a while. Then he's going to pop a tire. Yeah. He's going to be out for a few weeks.
Yeah, he will get
And then he'll go out there again and he'll stir. And then he'll blow an axle and he'll be out for a month or two. Or it'll be the season.
Just when you think you have your big play guy, he's down for
But the best thing they can do for him is just keep him running the type of routes where he's just wide ass open down the field and nobody's around him.
Right, yeah. I mean, and then in practice, he should not practice. Just keep him in enough shape. Just keep him healthy in practice. Don't have him do too much. A veteran, 34 years old. Make sure he runs wind sprints after the game and all this. After practice. Keep him in great shape. Keep his legs up under him. Keep him fresh. So when he gets to Sunday, you have the full-fledged world-class sprinter Deshaun Jackson on that Sunday. So don't overwork him during the week. Just kind of
you see offenses when he starts contributing and he's hitting those deep balls, then teams start respecting him again, and it opens up stuff underneath for him. The only problem is underneath he usually takes a beating. Yeah. When you start using him too much in the slot like that, no longer as either just a deep threat or a decoy, you start running him sideline to sideline, he gets banged up.
Yeah. Now, real quick, Eddie, before I get your take on some baseball, we have about 10, 15 more minutes. We're good. But now Tampa, Tom Brady, who lost that game last week to the Rams, but I didn't read too much into that about the long-term prospects. I mean,
well, that's
Tom
one
Brady,
of the games we definitely had to talk about before we go is the one
the
coming
Patriots,
up this Sunday.
And now we're talking about the rookie quarterback, quarterbacks. Mac Jones hasn't been doing as well either. I mean, but he's playing with New England, and he doesn't look as bad right now per se than some of those guys because Belichick is just not going to allow him to do that. Now, you think Cam Newton is laughing at the way the Patriots are looking right now on offense, not being able to score touchdowns and things of that sort. So we'll see what happens moving forward with them. Of course, I think he's going to be a damn good quarterback as well. I know I said he would be in the Hall of Fame one day. I was kind of talking noise that day. But he's playing in New England, and I think Mac Jones is going to be a great quarterback. You have Tom Brady going back. Now, a lot of people think that the Buccaneers are going to – the fans are going to boo Tom.
No, you mean the Patriots.
He's going to get the loudest ovation in New England that any player going back has ever gotten. I'm talking about they literally may have to make those guys sit down from the standing ovation. It may go on for like 5 to 10 minutes, bro. Seriously. I really feel like that.
I don't know. I don't know because I thought the same thing, and then I've talked to some people who are from Boston, and they're like, we like Brady, but we don't talk about him. You know, it's like we don't talk about him. We don't want to see him. He shouldn't come back here. He can't park in the same spot anymore. I'm hearing all kinds of stuff that that people.
I think Robert Kraft.
But you know what? In that moment, because we've, I don't know if you have. I know we've all. If you go to sporting events, there seems like almost everybody who frequents these type of events, there's a time where you're there and there's somebody that comes through who's been there before, and they've all played for somebody else since then. They've all been an opponent since then, and the guy always still gets the standing ovation or this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady won 6 freaking Super Bowls for those guys.
Yes.
I don't know, with it being a Sunday night, I don't know how liquored up the crowd's going to be because I know they like to get started early.
Man, like a liquored up quarterback.
I know they like to get started early, especially for the Sunday night games. But it could be hanging on what they drink out there in the parking lot. If it's something smooth and mellow and they're feeling nice, he might get a good ovation.
We'll see.
If they start,
I think it's going to go well.
I honestly think that because people probably feel like
you may hear a few guys try to sprinkle in some booze, but I think it's going to be so drowned out by the tremendous amount of love he's going to get from his fans.
I'm not sure because I really don't have a beat on Boston. I'm just not sure how people really feel about who's responsible for Brady moving on. Yeah. Because a lot of people have to feel like that if Brady stayed with the Patriots, they still have an opportunity to make it to Super Bowls, every year that he's their quarterback. But Brady had played.
The way that transpired, man. Brady, 20 years in, had delivered 6 Super Bowls, like you said.
Who do they blame for the departure, though? Do they blame Brady? Do they blame Belichick? Because we all know, like, there's been some.
As Belichick wanted him out the door, and Belichick wasn't quick to sign off on him.
Well, he came out in his press conference and said that.
Much like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do. I think most fans will look at it like that.
Well, I mean, Belichick has come out and said
I'm giving you 6 Super Bowls.
He wanted Brady back, and then you hear things from Brady's dad doing the interviews that he does, saying that Belichick wanted him gone. I just think Brady got tired of playing on the hometown discount and decided to go, get paid and play, for a salary that's more indicative of the type of player that he is. And he felt like Tampa Bay was the place for him to do it.
And boy, did he deliver.
Yeah, and he delivered. But going back to Foxborough.
You like the Manning show?
What's that?
You like the Manning show?
The Monday Night Football with the Mannings?
Yeah.
It's entertaining in certain moments. It also, to me, it's lacking in certain moments. I'd like to see them call parts of the game more. I want to figure out how good Peyton is at this. If you like the traditional way a game is called.
It seems like he's trying to get some practice by doing that.
Yeah, it's going to be lacking because it seems like there's 3 color coordinators there at all times, Peyton and Eli, and then whoever they have joining them, and no play-by-play guy.
Speaking of color commentating, this weekend I'll be doing the Shadow Creek and Dawson game, and you'll be doing – which game will you be on this weekend?
Cy-Fair, Cy-Woods.
There it is. So that should be fun. Speaking of – hey, you know who else does a great job right now? But you have me thinking about the Mannings, man. I love the Mannings. And it seems like Peyton is trying to get some practice. Maybe even Eli
funny.
For them. Yeah, Peyton and Eli
it's good
funny,
for
man.
a laugh.
I can see them with their kids, man. I mean, I can see Peyton running to his dad's and mom's room. Eli took what Evel Knievel said.
Well, there's no doubt about it. They're brothers, and they still throw shots at each other left and right.
They're comical. But you know who's good? who hit the ground running, and I thought Peyton would be able to do that. It seems like he's trying. I mean, he has to do what he has to do. He seems like he's kind of trying to get some practice doing it the way he's doing it right now. But I think if he got in the booth, I think he'll do a great job. I mean, you see what he does in certain acting roles. I mean, I just think you know who's a natural and who's damn good, who I listen to. And before they showed him, I was saying to myself, who is this dude? When I was listening to him, Robert Griffin III is damn good, bro.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I mean, the part that I heard, I was impressed. I mean, I'll be honest. I was impressed with the part that I heard. I didn't listen to the whole game, but the part that I heard, he seems like he's a natural for it. He has the personality for it, and he knows the game. I mean, with him being a former quarterbacks are usually always pretty good at this because they know the game so well from both sides of the ball. But from what I heard from Robert Griffin III, I mean, that was a damn good hire, and I mean, so I thoroughly enjoyed listening to him the time that I did. But what are the Astros? Come on, man, it's baseball time too. What's going on?
All right, so the Astros have been on a major losing streak, and right now they are already behind the Rays 2-0 here in the first inning. Things not looking good for the Astros.
You want to go into the playoffs surging?
Well, they're on a major 4-game skid right now, and we talked about it previous shows. Where this Astros team needed to be at the end of the year. We felt like they gave themselves enough cushion, although they still showed time and time again to underperform against talent or teams that weren't as talented as they were. And what we all feared, as fans, was them being in a position where they're playing not their best baseball at the end of the year, and now they have two of their toughest opponents, a team in the Rays that they were competing for the number 1 seed in the American League with, and right now that looks like it could be out of reach after coming off a loss
to
the last last place Angels? Are they second to last place?
Yeah.
Lost at the end of the series there, and then a 3-game sweep by the Athletics. The Astros can ill afford to lose these final 2 series. They only need, technically they could lose both series and still get in. 2 wins and they're in. But right now, you got to think that the Athletics are feeling pretty good about themselves after sweeping the Astros. They got to feel like they could do it again.
Right.
The Rays, well, we all know how good they are and the trouble they've given the Astros this year. Is it time to panic for the Astros?
I don't think it's time to panic, but the concern I do have with the Astros, I don't like the way they're finishing the season. I mean, again, you want to take a page out of the St. Louis Cardinals book, and you want to go into the playoffs surging. I mean, the way the Cardinals are playing right now, and they were a team that were they were a team that was flying under the radar all year until they hit their stride. I mean, you want to go into the playoffs surging, and the Cardinals are a team that can actually, the way they're surging, sometimes that means they're going to lead. I mean, if you look at the Nationals a few years ago, you want to go into the playoffs surging, and it may carry you all the way to a World Series championship. I mean, it just may happen. The Astros, I don't like the way they're finishing the season in that regard because you want to go into the playoffs clicking on all cylinders, and you don't want to give these other teams that you may see any more confidence than they already have.
And while you were watching and keeping your eyes on the A's all year long and making sure that you had enough room to sustain these last 2 series with them, come to find out they're not your biggest threat now that we're here and living that moment. It's actually the Mariners that are, nipping at the heels now of the Astros. They can ill afford to lose, to get swept by the Rays, and they put themselves in a position where they're battling with a very formidable opponent in the A's in a playoff-type atmosphere, and that team right now being a whole lot more healthier than the Astros are. I want to try to ease Astros fans' minds because I really do believe this team plays its best baseball in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's no doubt about it.
Well, now me saying that I would like for them to go in surging, but I'm glad you said that because they're playoff tested. They do have that experience. Now, maybe they think that they can just turn it on. But again, in the playoffs, you have to be on one accord. Of course, the pitching staff has to be great in the playoffs. You want at least your top 2 pitchers to be lights out. I mean, so of course you don't have Verlander right now.
So it's McCullers and
Valdez. So you would like to hope that they will go out and give you those first 2 games, give you some ace-type performances. And of course, you have the offensive firepower up and down that lineup where these guys have been in the playoffs. They have that experience, so you really can count on those guys turning it up.
But you're just not right now. You're just not getting
They're
it.
just
As
not
of
clicking.
late, you're just not.
Yeah.
You're not getting that.
Now, you think they're
And
looking
then-
ahead to the playoffs and they
then
just
when they
know
do-
that they can turn that switch, or they feel like that they can flip that switch? Obviously,
without being inside their heads, I
Mm-hmm.
think that the Astros have enough wherewithal, in their mentality that they will turn it on because they've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they barely, in the shortened season, they barely made the playoffs, still found a way to, damn near go to the World Series. So this is a team that when they get in that moment, all of a sudden it's a brand new ball game. It's a
Right.
different mindset.
Absolutely.
They can try
Correa
to fool
shows
themselves,
up.
and yeah,
Altuve shows
they can
up.
try to fool themselves, and that this regular season is just like the playoffs.
and they're not beating on cans this year.
We've seen them compete. When the Dodgers came to town, what a playoff type atmosphere outside of the playoffs can be like. But you won't get the best this Astros team has until they step foot on the field in the American League Division Series. I think they're going to find a way to win 2 games. I'd like to see them go ahead and try to bounce back in this first game against the Rays, take 1, and then
Yeah.
you've got 5 games to win 1, and you win the division. But I really would, to ease people's minds, like to see them, win this series against the Rays, win the series against the Athletics, and you go into
with some momentum.
You go in with some momentum, but ultimately, whether or not they do that, I don't know. If they're able to clinch, maybe they just rest some guys, and try to get into the playoffs
Get
as
some
healthy
fresh
as they
arms,
can.
Relievers.
Zach Greinke not being available, he's not going to be available. He's on the 10-day IL right now. He's possibly
and he's a playoff pitcher.
going to be available for the playoffs.
You need Zach. The Astros need Zach Greinke in the playoffs.
But Dusty Baker said today in a press conference that Greinke came to him and suggested that he go out of the bullpen for the playoffs, not a starter, because
But
he
you
doesn't
use
feel
his
like
savviness
he's
and his
stretched
experience.
out enough. That was
Right.
what the term he used, stretched out,
Okay.
to be the starter,
Okay.
or to go long like he likes
he can
to.
give you 3 or 4 great innings.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do one of them, what we've seen teams do in deep playoff series, go with that opening pitcher, the guy is only going to go out there and throw 1 or 2 innings, and then bring Greinke in and let him throw 3 or 4. And then if those 2 guys pitch well, then you've got a solid 6 or 7 inning start right there out of 2 guys.
Absolutely. And you don't have to burn your bullpen up.
Absolutely.
The back end of your bullpen.
Absolutely.
Like your closers.
But to me, it all hinges on how this Astros team does. We can talk about pitching up and down. If you're knocking the damn cover off the baseball, it's not going to matter. If this lineup, top to bottom, if they're healthy and they're hitting like they should be, they're putting runs on the board like they've done in the past, 8, 9, 10 runs, they're going to be really hard to beat. Playoff baseball doesn't always happen that way because you're generally going to face a team's top 2 pitchers most of the time. But we've seen them get the best of the best. We've seen them get the best of Clayton Kershaw before. We've seen them get the best of top-notch pitching around the league, looking like things are setting up to where they're going to play against the White Sox. We've seen them play the White Sox, and they beat the White Sox. We saw them smack them around here at Minute Maid Park. So, they may not be playing their best baseball right now, but all they got to do is get into the playoffs, and one rally gets started, and the next thing you know, they get that same energy that they had, or that they always get every time they find themselves playing playoff baseball, and especially playing playoff baseball at Minute Maid Park.
Right. Hey, so we shall see now. Speaking of playoffs real quick, before we get out of here, got another couple of minutes, and I like that breakdown, bro.
And one more thing about the Astros.
Go ahead.
I keep hearing people say, I think they'll make the playoffs, but they're going to be a first or second round exit. Yada yada yada. Look, get off the damn fence. Either they're going to be a first round exit or they're not. Because let's just face
I
it.
believe the Astros
If they
go to
win
the
the
World
division
Series.
and they go to the divisional series, and they don't have to play in that wild card game, which they're not going to have to if they win this thing.
That's people just hedging their bets.
If they're a second round exit, that will mean that they have lost in the ALCS and they have gone to their 5th consecutive ALCS. So don't give me this second round exit. Even if they are out in the second round again, which would be the ALCS for them, that would still be 5 consecutive American League Championship Series, making them essentially the New England Patriots of Major League Baseball, a team that's always there at the cusp of a championship, always there playing in the series that if you win, you play in the World Series.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to sit here and say if they're a second round exit that it's some kind of failure. But no, I do see that this team is on the slide right now, and they need to get off of it. It's just going to take those bats lighting up.
Yeah, and that's just it. Again, you want to go into the playoffs, with some momentum, But the experience that we've talked about, the experience that they have, I think the Astros are a team that can go in. Now, you don't want to go in like this. They can go in. As far as the offensive side of things, they're going to hit the baseball. They just have that much talent up and down that lineup. Now, I think where some people may have some trepidation is not really knowing what the pitching staff is going to do in the playoffs this season. But again, I think the Astros with that talented offense, I think they can make it back as far as they've made it, like you were talking about, the championship series to even the World Series. I mean, I predict that they will do that. And hopefully Dusty Baker, he has his fingers in his pulse. He has the right mindset about how to utilize that pitching staff. If he makes the right, now he has to manage those guys as well. He has to make sure that he doesn't burn up any arms, or when he doesn't have to use a certain pitcher, he saves them to the next game. So he has a lot of managing to do as well as far as the pitching staff. And obviously the pitching staff, they're going to be facing stiffer competition. So we'll really see what some of these guys are made of. And if Zach Greinke wants to come out of the bullpen, so obviously that's where he feels comfortable right now, coming out of the bullpen.
He just knows he can't go. He can't go more than 3 or 4 innings. So that's going to be.
And
I
commend him for being honest like that, instead of putting his team in a precarious position or putting himself in a position to where he's not being successful. Yeah. So if he feels that's the best way he can succeed, so be it. Now, let me ask you this before we get out of here. What are the Phillies and the Braves doing right now?
Let me see.
Now, the Phillies have to pretty much, and I want to see Bryce Harper in the playoffs. Mike Trout is already not in there. My guy Bryce Harper probably won't get in there doing the MVP
Braves
season.
Are up 2-0
there
in the bottom of the 7th.
They will probably have to sweep the Braves, which they're not getting in. I've said that. But this series right here, right now, a 3-game set between the Phillies and the Braves. The Phillies are so top-heavy. You have Zach Wheeler going tonight, who's been pitching great. But the Braves, I think, are going to stave them off. They're going to hold them off. The Braves, you're not going to – the Phillies will pretty much have to win out the last 5 or 6 games, and you have to sweep the Braves right now, this being game 1. You're 2.5 back right now, and I just don't see it happening. You say they're down 2-0 right now. But, of course, I would love to see B. Harp in the playoffs, but that's not going to happen this year. Great season. Could possibly win the MVP between him or Tatis, but the Phillies are not going to get in there, and I hate that, unless they just do the unthinkable these last 4, 5, 6 games. We shall see. But, Eddie, I know it's a lot of more football games we could have broken down and talked about, but it's a 2-hour show, bro, and we could talk about other teams next week. I like what Green Bay did. Aaron Rodgers, he came back and did his thing. You can't give Aaron Rodgers that much time in a situation like that. We'll see how legit they are moving forward as well. We'll see if Green Bay is all the way back. Who do they have this week? They have Green Bay has –
I have to look. I have the schedule pulled up if you give me just a second.
Okay. It's a lot of intriguing matchups, but we'll break those down next week as well. Again, the NBA is getting kicked off. See what LeBron, see what he has left in the tank, which is probably an MVP-type caliber season. He say he's feeling healthy right now.
It's the Steelers.
Okay, the Steelers. And we didn't get a chance to talk about the Steelers, but Mike Tomlin, who I believe in, you have Big Ben now, who a lot of people are saying, even though they don't have a viable option right now, my thing is if they keep losing, hell, see what you got in Dwayne Haskins. He's a first-round draft pick. But Mike Tomlin is behind Big Ben right now, 39 years old. The offensive line is terrible. And so we'll see what the Steelers,
it just can show you how things can fluctuate from week to week.
Absolutely.
They have a win against
overreact right now.
They have a win against a very good Bills team.
Yeah, they do. And you can't Najee Harris right now doesn't have an offensive line to run behind. They found their running back, but they're throwing him into the fire right now without an offensive line, and his yards per carry is not there. But it's all because the offensive line is so terrible. So we'll see what happens with Green Bay this week and the great Aaron Rodgers, if he can will out another victory for them. And if the Steelers can stave off another defeat. And a lot of other teams we can talk about, games, matchups. We'll do it next week. NBA, we'll speak more about the NBA next week.
Yep, and we'll MLB. See if this 16-game winning streak of the Cardinals catapults them into a playoff position. They look like they've almost got it into the bag, but there's no guarantee just yet.
Wild card. One thing about that wild card before we go, Eddie, that's dangerous, man. You look at somebody like the Dodgers. Well,
technically they could still get beat out by both the Reds and the Phillies, but like you said, they would have to.
Okay,
they could still miss. They've locked it up. They're sitting in the first playoff spot right now, the first wild card.
But they're not going to lose their second playoff spot.
No. What I'm saying is they essentially could get caught by both teams and beat out by both teams, even though they've got
is that close?
Yeah,
like a game and a half or two?
Mathematically, no, it's not. It's not a game or a half or two. It's more like 4.5 games, but still mathematically
just
it's
on
not
the-
done
Oh,
yet. Is what I'm
mathematically,
saying.
yeah.
They've
So they will pretty much have to.
they've got a stranglehold on it.
They pretty much have a precipitous downslide.
But
these last few
we
games.
all know that they win 16 in a row, 17 in a row, 18 or however many in a row.
probably
If
not
they
gonna
don't win that one in the wild card, then
See,
it's
that's what I
all
was
for
gonna say
naught.
about the Dodgers, man. As great as the Dodgers team is, I mean, they get in there because they can't catch the Giants, and they have that playoff game. Anything can happen in that one playoff game. That's what makes these playoffs in MLB so intriguing. Then again, you have the American League with Toronto, the Yankees, and Boston all vying for a spot. So we shall see. Hey, but we'll be back next week. And Eddie, great job as always, bro. Fun. Let's roll. Let's get out of here. The Sports Court. Legends live and let live.
Later.